Hello and welcome to the TGH College Hardwood Podcast. I am Joe. With me is Greg, as always. Here in March, Greg, we're here for March Madness basketball coming up. We're going to recap last week's games, preview this week's games. We have some great basketball coming up. We had some great basketball this past week. Greg, how you doing?
Dude, it's March, officially. Doing great. Can't ask for much more. Madness officially starts today with a play-in game. What is it, for the Horizon League tournament, I
Yeah,
believe?
yeah.
Yeah, play-in for the... Hey, listen, every team... Wow, that's a lie, Joe. I was about to say every team is still alive, but some teams didn't qualify for their conference tournaments because of how big these leagues have gotten.
Yeah, Greg.
Oh, that's going to send us down a tangent.
I'm for tournament expansion, Greg. It just happens to be conference tournament expansion. Everyone should be in the conference tournaments. But yeah, we're going to be here. Greg looks a little bit different. He's on his phone this time instead of his laptop, so bear with him here as we go through it. There's a little bit of background noise, but it's not that bad. We're going to go through our recap to start, go through teams that can win after that, then do picks for the big games of the week, and then do picks for the smaller conference tournaments that are starting. Greg, let's start it off. Quick hitter on last Monday. North Carolina beats Louisville. Louisville is a team that we have talked about being live or die by the three, and that is something that will oftentimes come to bite them in the back. They also lost to Clemson later in the week, so Louisville had a rough time. But North Carolina getting the win without Caleb Wilson was big.
Yes, it is big for North Carolina, and I think it's also big, Joe. I'm going to take a liberty. I'm going to skip ahead on a topic here, and just let the people know I'm comfortable taking Louisville out of our national title contenders, which gets us down to 20. So at this point, we're talking. It's March 2nd. We're talking resumes. We're talking bubble teams. We're talking national title contenders. And we're talking about a Louisville team that had high expectations and didn't beat Carolina. Granted, it was in Chapel Hill, but didn't beat Carolina without their best player. Then they go on and lose to Clemson, who has really been on a slide as of late, since their hot start to the year. Um, Joe, I feel like anything other than a little bit disappointing is you can't really describe this Louisville season, right?
I think so. Some bad news. We took them off already, so we can't take them off
Oh,
again.
I thought they were still on there. Great. Well, they're for sure gone now.
Yeah,
That's right. We did talk about them last week as we said, hey, Michael Brown had been back. And yeah, all right. Well, they're double secret off the list now.
yeah, they're double
So we're
done.
still at for those keeping track, we're still at 21, but we'll find them. We'll find
Yeah,
them.
but you're right. It's a disappointment, and it's like one of those things where, the guards are good. There's some defensive issues. There's the trusting 3-point shot. There's not the inside play that maybe you want, and that's where they're at. And good job by Seth Trimble in this game, 30 points, making up for not having Caleb Wilson. And now, if Caleb Wilson's able to return, looks a lot better for March. All right. Also on Monday, Greg, we had Houston and Kansas. And Greg, what do we have to say? Bill Self just does not lose on Big Monday. It doesn't matter what happens. Houston goes through 3 straight losses for the first time in a long time. You might have that stat. I do not have it. But he can't lose. Bill Self can't lose on Big Monday. Darren Peterson played 30 minutes. He is starting to play more minutes. He had 14 points. Trey White was the star in this one, though, 23 points, 6 of 9 from the floor. And then the same issues for Houston were there with Sinak and Tugler having 9 and 4 points each. That is something that's going to show up later in the week as well.
Yeah, Joe, I don't have the stat, but I would bet my house that it's the first time in the Kelvin Sampson era at Houston. Probably bet a lot more than that if I had more to my name. But yeah, 3 losses in a row. They did get very right over the weekend. I think it was Colorado by 40. I don't know if it was Colorado for sure, but I know it was obviously it was a Big 12 team, and it was 35 or 40 points. So, um, you know, this is what it is. It's fog. Only great teams like the Cincinnati Bearcats can win there. So you didn't think that was funny. All right, I thought would get a chuckle out of you, but
Yeah.
anyway, Joe, same things I'm noticing with this Houston team. There's not a lot of penetration. There is a lot of jump shooting, and that's fine. But a contrast to some of the teams that we're going to talk about later tonight. that play a little more inside out. It feels like this team plays kind of outside in, and the dishes to Tugler for the bunnies are kind of the afterthoughts. Hey, we'll try and create something on the perimeter, and then if we can't figure that out, then or we hit Tugler on a roll, or Sinak is taking a late. It's just the offense is a little stagnant at times, and some of that might have to do with the keys to the Ferrari being given to a freshman, and Flemings has done his part and he's done great, but he needs some help. They need to get the ball inside somewhat. I know they don't have significant great interior scoring, but they need to create some inside. But on the flip side, it's kind of hard to do that when Flory Badunga is what you have to try and shoot over. Joe, this Kansas defense, I don't want to say suffocating because I feel like there's been times, I use like the heavy physical defenses that we've seen from like Iowa State teams in the past where they just suffocate you. This just feels like good active communication and switching. I mean, Badunga switching on the guards and staying in front of them. Um, the Kansas defense is what's keeping them afloat right now, man, because it's been this story where it's been back and forth with Darren Peterson, and at least this defense is, granted, the Houston offense hasn't been great. We got to give them some credit for this win.
I think so as well. Big win for Kansas, Greg. I'll have more to say about them later since they have another game, so I'm going to save that part of it. Houston, like you said, they need to find a way to get inside scoring, whether that's some sort of pick and roll action instead of pick and popping. It's some sort of action they can run to get those guys easy baskets early, and then they can hit the glass and get some extra points as well. That has to happen. All right, so on Tuesday, some things we can go over quickly. Greg did not go to this game for Dayton, but SLU was upset by Dayton. That was huge for Dayton. A lot of Dayton fans think that they might be able to make a run in the tourney now, the A10 tourney, Greg. Tennessee lost at Missouri. That is a bubble game for Missouri, and Tennessee now has some other things to worry about. UCF beat BYU, and then BYU later this week lost to West Virginia. So that is a prime candidate to be taken off of our list, Greg, because that's two losses that are really troublesome.
Yeah, I just all I gotta say is you're welcome, Flyers, for me not going. That was obviously the reason that they won. I guess I'm a bad luck charm this year. Joe, where do we stand with? I don't want to dive down this rabbit hole too much, but so the Rhode Island, was it Rhode Island that beat SLU last week, and now UD? Where do we stand on this SLU making the tournament without the auto bid? I don't have a clue on this one because two losses like they had in quick succession, and being a mid-major team, I feel like it makes it precarious at best.
Yeah, I think this week for SLU is really important. They do have George Mason this weekend, which is a big game, but they're 24 in the net, so I think if they can win the rest of their games this week, I think that they can do some damage. I think they can definitely be in the tournament if they do that, even if they lose early in the conference tournament. I think we said what 33 is the highest, Greg, that you can be in the net without making the tournament so far. I think they're going to be in for sure as long as they don't drop a game or two this week, and then we can reassess after that.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I want to touch on from that night, Joe, is we have yet to really talk about this Mizzou team. I mean, they haven't really been that notable. They've kind of been like floating around the bubble, below the bubble, at the bubble, and now it seems like they're probably in the tournament if it started today. There's a couple games left, but Mark Mitchell transfers from Duke, and there's what is it? Anthony Robinson's on this team, and I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's like anything spectacular, but just remember. So I think they had a decent year last year, but the year before that was like 0-18 in the SEC. So Dennis Gates is doing well for himself. Turning a little bit of a program in Missouri after we thought with one of those years where it was like, oh man, he might just be out.
Yeah, got a good job getting Mark Mitchell to kind of return closer to home and play for Missouri. He's been big, like you said, the last 2 years for Missouri. They really, I mean, T.O. Barrett. had a lot of points against Tennessee. He only averages 8.9 on the year. This is a team that's going to be in the tournament. I'm pretty sure 5 quad 1 wins. Their net is lower than some other teams, and there are some other teams with 5 quad 1 wins that might miss the tournament. Talking about you Auburn right now, but that's a discussion that's a little bit different because Missouri has taken care of the business it should. They're 10-6 in the SEC and 29 overall, not closer to 500 like Auburn is. All right, Greg, let's go to Wednesday's game, the one we have to talk about. I'm not going to have much to say about this. It is a shocking result in that St. John's UConn killed St. John's. St. John's shot 20% from the field. Terrace Reed had a big game, 20 points and 11 rebounds. Rick Pitino later said that Zuby Ejiofor took a night off against UConn, so he had to have a bigger game this week against Villanova, which he did. One of Pitino's worst losses as a head coach. Everyone played bad for St. John's. There's not much positive you can say.
What was it? They didn't have a field goal for like the last 17 minutes of regulation. I know I heard the number somewhere, and it was like that's not real. Like as many shots as you get, like one of them's got to go in at some point. But I mean, it doesn't get any better. Like looking at the box score, they only had 11 field goals in the entire game. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you threw you or me out there, might be able to just luck of the draw, shoot from deep, unguarded, and hit more than that. But I mean, dude, what is it with this team? Because obviously they already beat UConn. That was at home, but we did this dance where hey, they're a top 10 team coming into the season, and we don't have to kind of rehash the story where the personnel was in question, and then it seems like they're getting comfortable. And I know sometimes teams are going to lay a stinker and it's on the road, but holy cow, dude, this is like bad.
Yeah, I have zero confidence taking St. John's in the tournament. Their best win is UConn. Greg, what's their second best win? Is it Villanova? It has to be Villanova. They didn't beat Kentucky. They didn't beat maybe Baylor. I mean, Ole Miss. That's their non-conference. There's nothing there. So this is just a poorly constructed team with the guard play. We saw some life from Dylan Darling, but like that's not enough for this team to put them over the top. So that's my concern with St. John's and UConn. It's still hard to get like they lost to the St. John's team, which hurts, but it's still hard to get a read on them because we just don't know what the level of competition they're playing. And it looks like maybe Villanova's in the tournament and maybe Seton Hall gets in too now, but even that's a big maybe. So it's one of the Big East things we'll just have to figure out. It's going to be one of the more fun things I think. A lot of people will take UConn to go far in this tournament, and they'll be sitting on the edge of their seat because they just don't know how good this team is. Like we don't. They had a good non-conference schedule, but in the last 2 months, 3 months, they haven't been tested.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, the only thing, again, just perusing the St. John's schedule, especially the non-conference, since you brought it up. I mean, close game against Bama really early in the season. They go to Players era and they lose to Iowa State only by one. They beat Baylor. That means nothing. They lose to Auburn. I mean, you're right, man. There's not a heck of a lot there. Granted, we can maybe say they were figuring things out then, but it's time to have things figured out at this point. It's literally the first week of March. So I'm with you. No confidence. I hate to skip ahead, but this was one of the teams I was going to talk about today. It was just like I get it. There was all these expectations and whatnot, but I got at least 10 other teams that I'd rather take to win the title than St. John's at this point.
Yeah, there's plenty of teams that I think are going to be like we can talk about. This was a big separating weekend, Greg, and we could probably take some teams off this week that I think this was a good way to separate it. All right, so let's go to Thursday. We had Michigan State and Purdue. Michigan State ends up winning this one 76-74. Braden Smith missed a three with a second left to seal the win for Michigan State. Carson Cooper had 15 points and 12 rebounds. Kurtang had 13 points. Braden Smith had 12 points and 10 assists. This is the first of two losses on the week for Purdue, Greg. They also lost to Ohio State this weekend, which was a big win for Ohio State, as that was one of two now quad 1 wins for the Buckeyes and helps them as they approach that bubble or at least get off the bubble.
Yeah. I know you're going to want to have the conversation. I know you're going to want to have it. And they're just long stretches of this game where the big to big passing between Kaufman, Wren, and Clough looks great, and there are some great X's. And I specifically remember a play where there was like 2.5 seconds left on the shot clock, and Painter had a play set where I mean, it's common sense and logic, but it was like, we're going to clear out and then just kind of throw it up to Daniel Jacobson, and he gets fouled, and they get a bucket. I mean, like, I like everything I'm seeing from this team. I wish they would have won this game. Michigan State, I think I've really underrated. They were also awesome in this game. Obviously, it was just a great game in general. Um, I guess the only concern with them, and we can say this about several national title contenders, is they have the shooting from outside. Obviously, some of their bigs can do it, and that may cause teams issues. Um, I just I don't. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to let go. And we could talk about that Ohio State result, and like that one is the one that kind of, I was like, okay, we can write this off. We're talking about Thursday night against, even at home, playing Michigan State. Michigan State is they're just a good, solid team. Um, I'm sure a lot of teams, Cam Ward would be starting for a lot of teams, just providing some really solid minutes off the bench for them. The Ohio State thing, man, like, ugh. We can have. I'm glad we only have to get down to 20, because we're probably going to get to, I would think, 19 or 18 by the end of this show, for teams that can win the title. But
But
I have to. I can't.
oh
It
boy.
might just be the names on the back of the roster, dude. I just feel like it should be something. I don't know.
Well, we have to be down to 20 by today's show and then 10 by the tournament. So we have two shows after this to
Oh.
get down to 10, which is the tough part. We can talk about it later because that'll be a discussion, but it will be interesting to see how that goes since we have to get so many teams down to the 10. All right. So yeah, Michigan State gets that win. We're going to move on to Friday, Greg. We have Michigan and Illinois. Michigan wins 84-70, absolute rout. Now there was some extra things that we could be talked about in this game too. We had the Michigan bigs playing well, all three bigs, 16, 17, 17, or 16, 19, and 19 points for Lendenborg, Morez Johnson in the revenge game, returning to Illinois, and Ade Mara, 19 points for him. Uh, Illinois still trying to get people back in the swing of things. Andrei Stojakovic, 0 points. Seems like he's kind of fallen out of the starting lineup and maybe not going to be a guy who's going to be starting, which is something I don't think we would have said 2 months ago. But this is also Keaton Wagler stepped up in 23 points, and that was the bright spot for them. They has said after the game they were thoroughly beat. A lot of the games were close. This is one that wasn't close. But more importantly, Greg, LJ Kaysen out for the season for Michigan now. That's going to be tough because this team in this game was led by their bigs, but there are times where the guards just have not played up to par with those bigs, and um, there was no. He was the best guard for the last couple games. Greg, he was probably their best guard coming off the bench, and now the depth is at stake. The guard play overall, the turnovers. It's something that is definitely going to be, I think, a big hit to this team.
Yeah, that's for sure. I'm not necessarily worried about depth overall. Like, serviceable bodies, guys that should be playing this level of college basketball. I mean, Will Cheddar played a lot more last year. He probably gets more run. I think we maybe see more Trey McKinney minutes. But you're right that that backcourt is going to be a little more hairy, and there's going to be a lot more pressure on Elliot Cadeau, and I almost feel like Namari Burnett has kind of just been a ghost. He's there. I mean, he's in the starting lineup and he only plays 17 minutes, and that probably is a product of where, I mean, he's not really produced much in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm not worried about. I mean, they're still going to be an 8-9 man rotation, but you're right. It's going to be the guards that are going to be a question, or at least there's going to be a lot more pressure on them. So I don't think this is a catastrophic shift for me, Joe, on them being a national title contender, because the truth is
Mhm.
they really weren't guard heavy, guard dependent. That wasn't the huge part of their identity to begin with. I think it hurts, given the choice they'd obviously take, Kaysen back. If there were roster moves to make and they could add a guard, I'm sure they'd do that. But that just hasn't been what they've been this year. So I'm not gonna lose sleep over it if I'm a big blue fan. It's just like, okay, it stinks, but still top two, three contenders to win the national title.
I think so too. I do think that he may have been their best guard by the end of the season, and not he's coming off the bench, not starting. So it's definitely something they'll have to figure out and figure out who, if you're like struggles, who you're going to put in and help run the offense and everything too. That's something that the bigs have done before too, but we'll see. All right, so Greg, let's go to the weekend. Let's start off with Saturday. We have some quick hitters. Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Kentucky wins that one. St. Mary's, Gonzaga. St. Mary's gets the last of the WCC regular season games against Gonzaga, which is a cool little story. And Duke just kills Virginia. All those games, sometimes surprising results in those three, but like overall, it feels like it's things that like Duke was going to kill Virginia, St. Mary's, Gonzaga. We just don't know what Gonzaga is still. Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Vanderbilt's kind of reeling, and Kentucky was at home. It's not like the biggest news.
Yeah, I think that Gonzaga question is the one that's going to be biggest on our minds over the next couple of weeks as they get into the WCC tournament, and then we see what they're seated at, Joe. Because I definitely feel like there were times this year where we looked at that Gonzaga team after a game and we were like, "Oh, they look fantastic. They, could be one of the top 10 teams in the country. They could be one of the top 5 teams in the country." But I feel like the more I look back, the more I'm wondering, is there enough substance there? Yeah, okay, they've been without Braden Huff for some time. They've had other injury issues. So I mean, it's a big question mark. It I think it's a big question mark of, are they a top tier team or are they a decent 5-6 seed? I think they're a decent team. I just think the question is, are they really a tier one team? Or are they kind of probably the next level? And I would think at this point, I'm kind of leaning like they're probably in that middle, that second tier. But I mean, crazier things have happened. I'm not stuck to this team by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know. It's I don't want to quit them entirely. Which, I mean, that's just let me put it to this way, because that's very general and generic to say. I would hesitate to pick them to make the second weekend of the tournament, but I am pretty certain with where they're going to be seated, they go up against almost anybody, and I'm just going to be like, pencil them in to win their first game for sure.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, Greg. They tried to schedule out of conference. They do have a win over Alabama. It's probably their best. Kentucky maybe second best, but they played Oklahoma, Creighton, Arizona State, Maryland. They lost to Michigan in that big one, but they played UCLA. They played Oregon, and like out of all those games, like Kentucky and UCLA are solid, and Alabama's great. But how many non-conference games can you schedule against power conference team? And like these teams are not good. And that sucks for them. But that's why it's so hard to figure out this team. And then they obviously, they dropped that game a couple weeks ago to Portland, one of the biggest upsets we've seen in WCC, and it's just one of those. Don't know what we're getting. Don't think their offense is really good enough to win a national championship. I'm cool not having that conversation this week and kind of waiting, but it's if I gun to my head right now, do I think they're going to make the Final Four? No. All right, so let's get to some of the longer recaps we have here, Greg. We have on Saturday Kansas and Arizona. Kansas wins this one. Arizona wins this one. Sorry, 84-61. Darren Peterson had to go Darren Peterson watch on this one 31 minutes. He is starting to play more, like Bill Self said he needs to. Had 24 points. This was a game where Burries took over. Braden Burries, 20 points, 12 rebounds. Koa Pete came back. That was nice to see. And Zona only shot 25% from three, but they dominated the game, Greg, which makes me ask the question, when Darren Peterson plays and he doesn't pass the basketball that well, where does the inside play go? Where does Flory Badunga go? Because he didn't have much of an offensive impact in the game earlier in the week, and he also didn't have an impact in this game on the offensive end of the floor. And I think that's something that is lacking, and the reason why they do lose some games when Peterson does play is because they don't get the bigs involved and they don't score in the paint.
Yeah, he is pretty ball dominant. So it's no surprise that this team has a completely different identity with him on the court versus off the court. The thing is, he's just really good. So it's kind of hard to it's. I mean, it's hard to say they're better without him, but they've for the most part they've played pretty well without him. I don't know. I This may just kind of be one of the all timers where we look and we say, man, this guy is awesome, but Kansas may not have been a better team with him. I don't know. It's just like such a crazy, illogical thing to even think or say, but I don't know how else to explain it. I really, I don't have words. I don't have an explanation. I don't have thoughts. It's mind boggling.
Yeah, and I think the ceiling is still way higher when he plays, but like I said, if the floor is lower when he plays as well, I mean, do you want to do that? I do. I'm going to take my chances and try to win a national championship as opposed to hoping Melvin Council and Trey White can kind of power their way through. But the results are true, Greg. Like, yeah, I guess the win over Kansas was big with Peterson playing, but they've had some stinkers too, and it's hard to team build chemistry too. So yeah, we'll see. For Arizona, it doesn't mean anything else for me. It is a just they are a good team outside of 1 week this year, and even then it was a tough week. So Bo Peep being back's big for them, but that's exactly what we expect them to do. Next game up, Greg. Texas Tech and Iowa State. A little bit of a shocker here. Texas Tech wins 82 to 73. They were up by much more than that at certain points. Christian Anderson did really not have his best. He didn't have an awful game, but you're thinking JT Toppin's out, and he only has 14 points and 7 assists. And for a lot of the game, it was even lower than that. So that was tough. Donovan Atwell had 18 points, so to help Texas Tech's offense. And Iowa State's offense just stalls at times. It's really frustrating. They got good play from Jefferson and Momcilovic with 22 and 20 points, Greg, but it's not like that's going to kind of be the thing is like they have the talent to have good offense and be more consistent. And obviously the defense didn't show up well when a team without their best player scores 82 points. But to me, there's stretches where Texas Tech is scoring and Iowa State should be able to match that, and they just didn't.
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Atwell, 6 of 10 from three is really what killed him. And usually a very disciplined Iowa State defense. Maybe it's not as elite of a defense as we've seen from TJ Osselberger coach teams in the past, but I mean, Joe, honestly, you shoot 14 of 29 from three, 48%, you're gonna win a lot of those games no matter who
Mhm.
you have on the floor. Ultimate equalizer, it's been said throughout time. In this case, yeah, they're without their best player. They're without one of the guys who, was in contention for National Player of the Year. But if the guards are good enough, it's a month that's dominated by guards. So anything could happen. We've been so worried about depth with this team, and we still are. But when you got what, six guys in double figures, and the only one that started and didn't is Lawan Watson. We've seen him have really good games this year. I don't know. Maybe it's just more of a free flowing offense without JT Toppin on there. I would still 100 times out of 100 take Christian Anderson, JT Toppin pick and roll style offense with other guys contributing around them. But they're working with what they got, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. Undefeated since JT Toppin got hurt. Obviously, they lost the Arizona State game in which JT Toppin got hurt, but they haven't lost since then.
That is true. They've won 3 games, and you know, one of them was against Kansas State, sure. Another one against Cincinnati, a team that's trying to fight their way under the bubble. That's a tough win, even at home. And this one on the road against number 6 Iowa State at the time, that's huge. So maybe this is a team that I think we penciled in as like maybe talking about taking them off our list if they struggle. They haven't struggled. I don't feel a need to take
I,
them off. Yeah,
I was sitting there this on Saturday thinking, man, I am kind of glad that we didn't take them off our list.
yeah, me too,
So
me too. And Christian Anderson's just such a good player. That's what it does sometimes. You get some other guys to step up. That's how it goes. All right, Alabama at Tennessee, Greg. Awesome game. And we had the LeBaron Philon hit a jumper with 22.8 seconds left to help Alabama win 71-69. He had 23 points off the bench for Alabama in this one. Tennessee was up early. They blew double-digit lead. They're up 12 at the half. There was Tennessee fans saying, "This is the easiest thing ever. I'm betting Alabama live money line because Rick Barnes blows double-digit leads like it's his job." I think part of the equation too is though Nate Ament went down with a knee injury. Greg, I have not seen one update about him so far. I Googled, Twittered it after this. Nothing. So that's something to be concerned about, and a reason we might take Tennessee off our list this week when we talk about it. But it was just too much. Jacoby Gillespie did a good job trying to keep up with Alabama, but there's just not enough talent around him when Nate Ament's down.
Yeah, talk about stealing one. They literally didn't lead the game until Philon shot with 22 seconds left. That's killer for Tennessee. Yeah, some idiot picked them to win the SEC this year. I don't know who that was. You shouldn't listen to anything he says for sure. Um, Joe, fair to say that Bama's kind of almost floated under the radar for some time in the last, I would say, the last several weeks, right? So they had that Sunday game where they got smoked by Florida. That was, I believe, that was a Sunday game, and so we didn't really talk much about it because it was, I mean, it was just a lopsided game, but I mean, they've pretty much just taken care of business, I think, since then, including, we did talk about obviously the double overtime game with Arkansas. Yeah, that was a Sunday Florida game, 100-77, and they haven't lost since.
Mhm.
I I don't know, where do we stand with this team? A team that plays this way, obviously, always going to be a threat to get hot and maybe wind up in the Final Four. Are they good enough to win the national title? We know that one of the weaknesses is that inside game, but they've got a lot on the perimeter that makes them a very dangerous team.
Yeah, I think this team is not a national title contender, but I do think they're a threat to advance in the tournament. Like we said, having to win 6 games the way they play is very tough. Especially, this is not one of their better rosters under Nate Oates, but they deserve a lot of credit. I think Philon stepping up has been huge. Like you said, they've been on fire lately. They've taken care of business, and yeah, there's some easy wins, but also there's some underrated wins. Texas A&M. In this time span, there's Auburn, who again 500, but picks off of some good teams at times. And then the Tennessee win and the Arkansas win a couple weeks ago too, the double overtime one. So that's all big stuff for them, and I do think they're a solid team. I don't know if the ceiling's national title this year. I think it might be Final Four. All right, so that is the second last game. We're going to recap the last one. Doesn't have a lot to me to say, but Florida is one of the best teams in the country, Greg. They finally got there. Everyone agrees on it now. They kicked Arkansas's ass in this game, Greg. It was not close, 111-77. Arkansas's defense was awful. It's been a problem at times this year. At times they lock in, at times they don't. Thomas Hall had 22 points. All 5 starters for Florida are double figures. Xavier Lee stepping up really big down the stretch. My guy from Princeton that we talked about a lot last year at Princeton. Um, this is a national title potential squad. They're trying to get a number 1 seed. They're battling with UConn for the last number 1 seed, and they deserve every bit of it because they have been on a tear, 14-2 in the SEC. If they win the SEC tournament, Greg, it'll probably be 15 straight wins going into March Madness.
Yeah, Joe. The only other thing I want to touch on, I don't know if you saw, but there was some chirping on Twitter with Boogie Fland and the Arkansas fans. I don't know if you caught any of that, but there was like, I don't know if it was him, but there was some commentary by someone about he didn't feel like once he got hurt, he didn't feel the love or whatever, and people were just screenshotting tweets of things that happened after he got hurt last year. I don't know. It was interesting. He's got spare time, worth a look. Um, I mean, Joe, we said it. If these guards can contribute, this team is dangerous because they've got a lot of length and they've got versatile, athletic bigs. It's not just smash and grab type guys. They got guys that can actually play really good offense, and then at times if they just need them to steamroll and go get a bucket, Chinyalu can do that. So this team obviously struggled a little bit early on in the season, and there were questions, and there were questions about the guards, and there were questions about depth. But I would still, they're definitely a national title contender, but they're right up there with a few other teams we've talked about. With man, I still feel like they're one injury away from the entire thing just falling apart. I mean, who's not? But when you're talking about their rotation being as tight as it is, and, obviously they get, you know, 14 guys in this game just because of how lopsided it was. But really, they're playing with seven a lot, maybe eight. Brown seems like has been playing more lately, so you know it's still hairy, but it's I would say if you could tell me they'd be healthy, I could pretty much think hey, this has got to be one of our Final Four teams looking ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing they have over the other top four seeds is that guard play. They not only, I would say Arizona's guards are good, but we don't see them shoot a lot of threes. But if you're talking about complete way to impact a game, these Florida guards went from kind of big question to now Xavier Lee's playing better, Boogie Flann's playing better. It's gotten to a point where they might have the best guards out of any number one seed right now, with Michigan having their issues and the injury, with Duke being led by Cam Bruiser instead of like a real true point guard, and Arizona. Like I said, I'd probably take Arizona's guards over Florida's guards, but when you add the shooting, it's just kind of a little thing to think about.
Yeah, the only other thing, Joe, I believe I saw somewhere, and I don't know what the number is, but Florida's the leader in the clubhouse with quad one wins at the moment. Correct?
Let me
I
double.
swear I saw that because I remember seeing that. I remember hearing that and thinking, okay, so they're good, but I feel like they're having an even better season than I realized.
No, they're fourth in that. They're 10-5. Arizona's
Okay,
13-2. Michigan's 11-1, and Duke is 12-2.
I swear when I saw this, they had 11. So I'm wondering if one swapped to a quad two, one of their wins swapped to a quad. I don't know. Maybe obviously I remember things that didn't happen. So who knows? I I was almost positive that I saw something this weekend, and the net is fluid, so there are some things that teeter. I don't know if you're looking at it right now. I'm curious if any wins might have flopped down to a quad two.
I do not see that. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, but yeah, but that's a good point, Greg. I think there's a lot of debate about UConn versus Florida for that last number one seed, and Florida, if they keep on winning, I think they're going to take it because they do have 10 quad one wins. UConn has eight, and then UConn also has a quad three loss. So it's something to think about in the next couple weeks here.
Yeah, that Creighton loss might really come back to haunt UConn when we're talking about getting a one seed.
Yeah, true. All right, Greg, that's our recap for the week. Let's get to teams who can win. And as a reminder, we have 21 teams left. Greg, we have to get down to 10 teams by 2 weeks from now. So we have to at least take one off. But if we take just one off, we have to get 10 teams through the next 2 weeks. So, who do you want to go with?
So, yeah, let's start with I feel like Tennessee's got to go. Yes, Nanament is great, but we've had the same story. They lost to Mizzou this week, and that's nothing to shake your head at. And they lose a heartbreaker to Bama, and yeah, okay, they're a good team, but they can't hold on. I mean, how many times now this year have we said, hey, they blow a double-digit lead? And I mean, they're going to need to hold on to something like that over the next couple weeks in March. I just, again, looking upward from Tennessee, I like a lot more of what I see above them. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I would have been fine taking Tennessee. I know I mentioned them a couple weeks ago. Taking them off the last couple weeks, the cement injury just doesn't help their case, and I just don't think they have enough. I think Rick Barnes has his own tournament issues. I don't think that's like I think Tennessee fans should still be happy he's that coach. He's doing really well, but I don't think this is the team that's going to break through. I guess is what I would say. I think if he's still capable of winning a championship, I still think he's capable of going to another Final Four, but it's not. I don't think this is the team for it unless the bracket just totally sets up his way.
So that gets us to 20. So we're within the parameters of our game. Now there's a couple other conversations I think we could have. I'm sure you probably have more teams to have a conversation about than I do in my head. But the two right now that I want to talk about and see if again we don't have to decide. We've given ourselves some leeway. But I'd like to have a conversation about BYU and I'd like to have a conversation about um, St. John's.
Okay,
I don't
I'm
know who
on.
you want to talk about first. I just take it where you want to go, but
I don't think St. John's has the guard play. It is a guards game, and it's not like their bigs are playing. Like, Zuby's great, but it's not like they have the Michigan's front court or Florida's front court or anything like that. I just don't. I don't see them winning six in a row. For BYU, I think the injuries are just killer. I mean, it scares me more to take off BYU than it does St. John's. But I'm okay taking both off. I just the star power BYU has AJ DeBonsa. I don't think is really like I said, there's not many people who can cover them. That makes it tough. I'm okay with both of those teams coming off the list if you're comfortable, Greg, and then I'm also okay with Gonzaga if you want as well. I know that's a little bit risky because they're probably gonna be a 2 seed, but 2 or 3 seed right now looks like. But
again, we don't have to take any of these teams
yeah,
off.
that's
We
true.
can
But
give it another. We can give it another week. I'm
well,
fine. I don't think there's anything that's going to happen between now and Selection Sunday that I'm just going to look up and say, because what are we going to get from St. John's? What data points are we going to get between the remaining Big East games and the Big East tournament? There's nothing like they. You could look up and say they beat Butler 120-5. And like, oh, okay, great. I don't care. Like I feel like BYU and who else were we just talking about? You just mentioned one other team.
St. John's.
No, I thought there was a
Oh,
third team that you mentioned.
Gonzaga.
Okay, yeah. Well, Gonzaga might be in the same boat, but let me zone in, I guess, on BYU. BYU, if we look up and AJ DeBonsa averages 37 in the Big 12 tournament, and they win the Big 12 tournament, I feel like we're going to be shaking our heads thinking, why did we take this team off? Now, that's probably the only way that they're a national title contender is if he's Michael Jordan, which he might be. Who knows? Um, I'm fine taking St. John's off, leaving BYU on. And then there's a question about Gonzaga because again, I just had this whole conversation about what are we going to see from St. John's, over the next 2 weeks is going to change anything. We're going to see even less from Gonzaga because they're already about to start the WCC tournament in the next couple days. So, and then they'll have time off, and I just I don't know. It feels like what's going to happen is we're not going to get any more data from them, but we're just going to work backwards and be like, yeah, these 10 teams are better than them, clearly. Period.
Well, let's do it this way, Greg. Let's take St. John's off, so we're down to 19, and I think on the chopping block for this week, we can say BYU. And we can say Gonzaga, we can say Virginia. I'm going to throw on Purdue as a chopping block team, but we don't have to take them off today. We can just think about it this week. And I do think that gun store aheads, we're not taking any of those 4 teams. Doesn't mean they can't win, but we're not taking any of those 4 teams. There's also like Arkansas in there. There's I have some more question marks about Illinois now, as much as I love them, just the way things have gone. I don't think it's gonna be hard to get down to 10, but I think when we really think about it, it's not going to be like I think these next 4 teams will be easier than the next 6, 5, 5. So let's sit on it at 19. We'll try to get down to around 15 next week, and those are the teams for me on the chopping block. And if you have any other ones besides BYU, Gonzaga, Virginia, and Purdue, you can say now, or we can just see how the week plays out.
I mean, I'm fine sitting on that. Um, you mentioned Virginia. I mean, like that's the only one I'd even consider having. And they're what, like a 4-loss team.
Yeah.
So like that's the ACC is better than it was, but it's still, it's not up there with the Big Ten. It's not up there with the Big 12. I
And we
don't know.
can
I haven't taken a minute to think about this, but I mean, the ACC definitely has a better national title contender than the SEC. I'm doing this live,
Mhm.
but I'd imagine we'd say as far as tournament depth, it's going to be the SEC that's got the. I'm not. I don't have anything in front of me. I'm just like braining this out right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like, because Louisville is weak, but they're going to make the tournament, and Carolina's without Caleb Wilson, but they'll make the tournament. Yeah, so it probably still is the SEC, even though the SEC is pretty much what, like Florida, Arkansas, and I guess Bam. Yeah. So okay, I'm
We,
again doing this live. I'm the SEC is better than, even though yeah, the ACC has probably the better national title contender. Depth overall, I would take the SEC right now. So the
yeah,
SEC is back to the fourth,
yeah,
which is
that's right. Yeah, we have three teams left and teams who can win on each conference, but there's gonna be more teams from the SEC who make it than the ACC. Especially with Clemson's recent struggle. I guess they beat Louisville, but Clemson has been falling off the map. So, like, oh, are they going to make it? Who knows? And NC State just lost to Notre Dame. They're still probably in, but just there's some issues there for the ACC. But we'll talk about that more later, Greg. Those are the teams that are on the chopping block. Those are teams at least we're considering. There's other teams who could have bad weeks or injuries who could take teams off of the list, but we're at 19 teams. We'll try to take 5 off next week. Greg, let's go to our picks for the week before we get to conference tournament picks for the ones that start this week. So let's start it off, Greg. You have us picking Iowa State and Arizona tonight on Monday night.
yeah. I had us picking originally Iowa State and Arizona State, which is a game that wasn't happening.
Hmm.
Also, wouldn't be one we'd even be looking at. Which, by the way, I guess we can touch on that. Bobby Hurley's probably done, right? Like, short of them winning the national title, short of them winning the Big 12 conference title the Big 12 tournament and making the tournament. I mean, he's yeah. That could happen. He was still probably done. I don't know. We That's off season talk, but figure we'll put that out there for people. I would be expecting a change this offseason. Could come as soon as literally the Big 12 tournament ending. That's a great way for me to delay and try and really think hard about who I want to pick in this game. It's at Arizona, which I probably weigh more into my thought process more than most people. We've talked about the Iowa State offense and their struggles, and we know their defense is good, but it hasn't been as good. I'm going to take Arizona to win this one at home. Um, I just top to bottom, I like them better. I do love this Iowa State team. Breaking my heart with some of these losses they've had in the last couple of weeks because there was a world where I could have seen them as a Final Four team. I don't know. I'm starting to get lopsided with them. I'm still probably going to be end up fine leaving them international title contenders, but I'm not as confident in them as I am in some of these other teams we're talking about. So Arizona to win this game. That is tonight. I believe that is the 9 o'clock Big Monday game.
It is Arizona for me. I think pretty easily. It doesn't mean Iowa State can't win. It's hard to pick them after the performance they put up against Texas Tech this week. And then also, Greg, you mentioned Bobby Hurley. I mean, he's three NCAA tournaments in 11 years. Record is 183 and 165. It's been well past time for them to get rid of him. Maybe he has some dirt on the administrators or something. I
And
don't know.
and the majority of that was in the Pac-12, which
Mhm.
was in my opinion, easier to make the tournament out of. But
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to Saturday games, Greg. Now, there is not as many marquee games. It is rivalry week. Anything can happen. It is a lot of games that could be good, but it's not like a one versus two like we've seen in the last couple weeks. So let's start it off with Vandy and Tennessee rivalry game. Number 24 Vandy at number 23 Tennessee.
yeah, we're not going to spend too much time on several of these games. I'm going to pick Vandy to kind of go into Knoxville and get a high note going into the SEC tournament. I'm going to pick Vandy to win this game. Obviously, Joe mentioned Nate Amen's health is at least in question. Regardless, this Vandy team is fun. They're a good team. Mark Byington is creating something in Nashville. And yeah, they started off the year, 15, 16-0 or whatever, dropped several games since then. I think this team makes some noise in March, probably wins a game or two, and I will pick them in this game on the road to go into the SEC tournament on a winning note.
I'm taking him as well. We don't know about Nate Met's health. The last I saw, again, just looking at it, was right knee injury, but he also has like a I don't know, an ankle too or something. It's not the most clear what's going on there, and maybe we'll have more information when we get closer. But for now, the pick is Vanderbilt winning on the road. They do have a lot of guys who can handle the ball. They have a lot of guys who can put up points. I'm going Vanderbilt to win this one. Next one up, Greg, we have Wisconsin and Purdue.
Purdue and Joe will make you this deal. If they lose this game, it's at Mackey. They're off the list. Non-negotiable. Just done. You can't. I mean, they went years of losing like one game at Mackey a year, and I think we're up to 4 this year. Um, Wisconsin's a decent team. There's no shame in losing to them, but this is a game at home, especially with what they've been through in the last week. They need to get this done. Period.
Yeah, I think I'm going for doing this game. I think it's fair. I think they're going to win this one. This is like I said earlier, Greg. This is a team that I think can beat solid teams, but beating truly great teams that we think win the national championship, they maybe come up a little bit short. As evidence, they beat Alabama, they beat Texas Tech. That's good wins. Don't get me wrong. That's really good. Um, they lost to teams like Michigan. They lost to Michigan State. They lost to Illinois. They lost to Iowa State. And those teams are probably closer to that national championship tier. So I think this is, first of all, this is a game they can win because they're not in that upper echelon tier, that very, very tippy top tier. But also, yeah, we can talk about that after this game as well if they do lose. All right, so next one up, we have Florida and Kentucky. They battled earlier this season to see who would take the lead in the SEC. Florida took the lead. Kentucky fell a little bit, but Greg, Kentucky's still in play to have a double bye and possibly the number 2 seed in the SEC tournament, which is just crazy how this has gone.
Yeah, with all that being said, this looks like a straightforward Florida's going to romp them and blow them out like they have a couple of. But the Kentucky team has surprised in both directions at different points this year. I'm going to take Florida, but I'll have my eyes on Rupp for sure.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they do this week because at Texas A&M isn't easy, and then they come back home and play Florida. I'm going Florida because they're just a wagon right now, and Kentucky, again, there is just a lot of credit to Mark Pope. There's been a lot of hate with the fans and everything, but there's been a lot of injuries. I don't know if they have the depth to really keep up with Florida, and because I think you need to throw a lot of bodies at the guys at the Florida's front court, otherwise you're just not going to win. They just don't have that. So Florida wins this one. Now, Greg, just a quick note here: there are reports out there that Jaden Quaintance is doing a strength test this week, which could allow him to return for the postseason. But we're not putting our eggs in that basket because seems like it's been going on forever. Next pick up, we have North Carolina and Duke in the big rivalry game here. Duke, number 1 in the country after the big last couple weeks here, want to try to beat North Carolina at home for this rivalry.
Yeah, so if you're new to college basketball and this is like the first time you've ever tuned in, this March Madness is going to be your first experience. Congratulations for getting out from under your rock, but these two teams don't like each other and weird things happen. So, granted, North Carolina is again without their best player. Um, I don't know if you know this, but they played a couple weeks ago and there were some shenanigans there. Uh, I'm going to pick Duke. There's really no reason to pick North Carolina, but there wasn't the last time they played either. So
Definitely a game worth watching every time, no matter what the records are. But Duke should win this one, get the revenge on their home court, and like I said, North Carolina not having Cale Wilson is a little bit tough for them. All right, last one we're going to pick: Texas Tech and BYU. BYU, like we said a couple weeks ago, Greg, they got a win without Richie Saunders, and then they've struggled since. So can they get back on the right track? And Texas Tech still without JT Toppin, can they stay on their hot streak?
I feel like I don't even think I feel like this is essentially a fact. This game means so much more for BYU than it does for Texas Tech. Texas Tech has been playing great since Topham was out. Just coming off, we talked about the win at Iowa State. BYU gets this win, and maybe it starts setting things right. I don't think I'd really knock Texas Tech for if they lose this game. The unfortunate thing is Toppin's not going to be able to help on defense. Bringing a second guy on Devonsa, which again would have been nice to watch, but it is what it is. I'm struggling with this pick because again, on paper, yes, Richie Saunders is out for the year and whatnot, and BYU's got other injury issues, but I, they've got the best player on the floor, but Texas Tech has had it together since then. So I'll just take Grant McCaslin to keep knowing how to work it without one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, I'm going BYU because I think what you said is it rings true here, Greg. Even though you picked the other side, is like this means so much more to them to try to get this big win. Texas Tech, up at 10 in the country now. I don't think that the committee's going to ding them too much for not having JT Toppin. At least I hope because they're playing without him and got a big win without him. But this means a lot to them. They're at home, tough place to play. It's not going to be like easy for them moving forward. But like I said, the matchup problem with AJ DeBonsa would be huge. And we just can't. I don't know if we can expect Texas Tech to always shoot as well as they did against Iowa State. All right, so those are the picks. Or sorry, one more on Sunday. We have Michigan, Michigan
The
State. Can't
best
forget
game of the week.
the
How are you
best.
going to forget it?
Well, like I said, not many elite games like we've seen the last one in versus two. This is the closest thing to it, though. We have 3 versus 8 Michigan hosting Michigan State. Greg, I think lowest ticket price for Duke, North Carolina is 1,600. Lowest ticket price for Michigan, Michigan State is $219. Michigan is hosting. Who you got?
First of all, I think if you gave me $1,000, I'd go to this game. I think this is going to be an awesome. Obviously, if you've never been to Cameron Indoor and you want to go see a Duke Carolina game, sure. But as far as what's going to be a better game this weekend, I'd take the $800 in my pocket and go see this game because I think this is going to be one heck of a game. Um, Michigan State looks awesome. Kind of remind me of Arizona in some ways. Really getting it done inside, not chucking up a ton of threes. Um, Jeremy Fierce is, a much better distributor than anything that's on Arizona's team, and he's playing awesome. I'm glad he's gotten away from tripping and kicking guys because that was a major distraction that we just didn't need. Um, I'm going to take Michigan State to win this game at Michigan State with Michigan kind of, you know, having some guard issues and maybe trying to figure something out. I don't know with how they're going to work their rotation. I get a feeling that without Kaysen, maybe that's the difference in this game. But Dusty figures something out, and they're still a Final Four team, Michigan, come the next couple weeks.
Yeah, how important is this game? Not for like seeding or anything else, but just to see what Michigan has against quality competition before we go fill out brackets. With that guard play. The thing is, like Michigan State, I don't think has the guard play in their own right, other than Fears to really threaten, pressure, all that stuff. I'm going Michigan. I think Jeremy Fears has taken this Michigan State team about as far as you possibly can, given the talent. They have good interior players, but until they get more perimeter threats, it's just not a team I really believe. Not a team I really believe in to win the national championship. They're still on the list. They're going to stay on the list for another week or two, but it's I think it's one of those Izzo Final Four teams gets the most out of them, but maybe not winning 6 games in a row just because they don't have the firepower. I don't. That's the
Joe,
tough part.
the only other thing that I'll say bolsters my pick here is guys like Carson Cooper and Jackson Kohler that will draw Ade Mara away from the basket and can, they're not the greatest 3-point shooters, but they're what's the term I'm looking for? I don't know,
Serviceable.
solid, serviceable. Yeah, they're serviceable 3-point shooters, right? I think I was watching the Purdue game the other day, and I think they said Carson Cooper's taking the most threes on the team this year. Which, I mean, I guess that makes sense because who else is chucking up threes? I mean, I know Jordan Scott is, but
25% from three. Carson Cooper. He just needs to make enough to make people leave the basket, but that's still crazy. All right, Greg, let's go to our picks for the conference tournaments that start this week. Now, this will be tough for Greg on the phone doing all this stuff, but we
gonna do my
have,
best.
he's going to do his best. Let's start with the America East, I believe is the first one, Greg. I have them highlighted, so I'm going to get to all of them, but just America East is what we'll go with first. This is a conference that's been dominated by Vermont. UMBC is actually in first place in this conference, so Greg, who are you going with?
Let's see. I have nothing smart to say about any of these teams, and I know this sport is built on the backs of Cinderellas. That's bad, but I I'll take I'll take Vermont. Why not? I feel like
Okay.
I've taken them in the past. Second in the standings right now. I'll take Vermont.
And just so Greg knows, I'm typing yours picks into the sheet for ourselves. I
Thank
did not do it for
you.
I didn't do it for our picks for the week, so you have to do back and redo that. But I know you can't do it
Yeah,
right now, so I'm
yeah,
gonna
I can do that.
put you in for the conference tournament champions. I'm going. I'm going UMBC. I think they're a team that has three double digit scores from the guard spot. Listening to Mark Titus's podcast, Mostly Hoops now, they talked about Ace Valentine, who has 11.6 points and 4 assists, and that he's noticeably angry a lot, and he is working with an anger coach on his anger because he's like, I don't know, I guess broken stuff before, but just watch it. I like that anger in a guy. If he's learning to control it and harness it, that is something that is worth talking about. All right, Atlantic Sun is up next, Greg. Again, this is um, a conference that has been dominated by two teams for the most part: Central Arkansas and Austin P, 15-3 each for them. Queens is also 13-5, Lipscomb 12-6. Any thoughts here, Greg?
Queens is not eligible for the postseason. I don't believe. They're eligible for the A-Sun tournament,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not eligible for the NCAA tournament. Just to note, they're one of the teams in transition in Division One. I don't know off the top of my head. There's probably 8 or 9 teams that are currently in transition. Um, let's go. Let's go Central Arkansas. Let's pick the favorite, I guess.
Yeah, Austin P is also pretty good, Greg, but I'm going to go Central Arkansas as well. I believe someone said this is the first tournament that they would be in since Scottie Pippen was there, which would be crazy. But I also thought that
They weren't even Division One
yeah,
when Scottie Pippen was
that's
there.
what I was thinking too, and I because that's what a big part of the Last Dance documentary was D2 guy. So I don't know what that means, but someone said it. I'm going. Dave Cameron Hunter is averaging 19.7 points a game. A lot of these comes down to having a guy who get you a bucket. He's a guy who can do that. Greg, you mentioned teams who are ineligible. Um, I guess there are some teams who are eliminated because they didn't make their conference tournaments. Queens, I believe, is eligible.
They they're done. Okay.
Yeah, so West Georgia is not
They're
eligible.
not eligible.
Yeah,
Yes, correct. Yep.
but yeah, you're right for what you said that they're right just the year after the what's it called?
So for everybody who doesn't know, you move up to Division One from Division Two, or I think the same thing if you move over from NAIA. You have 4 years transition where what is it? You can play in your conference tournament, and there's something with the revenue sharing, but you cannot play in the NCAA tournament.
Hmm. Which is a dumb rule and they need to fix. But
Stupid.
yeah. All right, so let's go to the Big Sky Conference now, Greg. Portland State would be a fun story. 12-5 in conference. Montana State 11-6. Eastern Washington 11-6, and then there's Montana State and Weber State tied at 10-7 for looking for the top teams in the conference here.
Um, Joe, your buddy that you like that plays football for Montana State, he's not a two-sport athlete, is he?
He's not, no.
He's not. Was it Tommy touchdowns or whatever? What do you call him?
Touchdown Tommy, yeah.
Touchdown Tommy. Yep. Uh, for those of you who don't know, Joe is a great NFL analyst. Go check out his Twitter. He's got a lot of with Combine being last week. Excuse me. There's a lot of good stuff on it. And he was a big Montana State guy. So you know what, Joe? I'll take Montana State just for you.
You stole my pick, but I love it. Yeah, they're a team that has three guards averaging in double figures. Jed Miller leads the way there. I will take them. Watch out if they make the tournament. Like the one player that I do an article, one player to know on each team is Jed Miller. He leads them in a lot of statistical categories, and I think they can go on a run there. Although Portland State would be a cool story. We don't see them making the tournament too often, so that's fun. Big South now, Greg. This one has been dominated by High Point 15-1 in conference. Winthrop is another good option. Everyone else is right around 500 or below.
Yes, before we continue, I am going to shout out a Twitter account. That's a good Twitter account to follow this time of year, and that's the what is it? Never Made the Tourney Club. I can't remember if it's how they phrase it, but they'll especially this week they'll update you on. And I know you're right. Portland State's made the tournament before, but that's one of the kind of cool things is they'll tweet who's getting close to making the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history. Always a fun thing to watch this time of year. High Point, goodness, finally a conference, on the lower tier that I have something to say about. This was their conference from the beginning of the year. Dare I say, Joe, there were murmurs about like should this team be on a bigger radar than they are. I'll take them to win the Big South.
Yeah, last 2 years really they've been hyped up a lot, and a team that has dealt with some adversity. Cameron Fletcher has. It's a weird. I think he's on the team still, but he was originally kicked off the team. I don't know what's going on with that. Former Kentucky, Florida State, Xavier guy who was averaging 13.4 for them, but they've handled that pretty well. And yeah, I think they're going to be able to win this conference tournament. And I think some of the teams on the bubble might have trouble getting upset. So like if say Auburn makes a tournament, they have some potential to get an upset. But there are teams out there who may not be able to pull off upsets. But there's some good mid majors like High Point. High Point's a one to start circling. They could win a game if they get the right matchup. All right, CAA, Greg. This is a Colonial or Coastal Athletic Association. UNC Wilmington 14-3, Charleston 14-4, Hofstra 11-6, and then teams that are right around 500 as well.
Joe is correct. It used to be the Colonial Athletic Association,
Yep.
and this year they rebranded. So I'm sure at some point it comes out of my mouth wrong, but it's still the same initials. So, Joe, I feel like I should know the UNC Wilmington coach's name because I swear I've seen him on potential job lists coming up for this round, but
Yeah,
I can't think of his name.
it's Psycho or something. What's his name? It's
I basically a guy you're going to want to have your eye on because he's going to end up. I mean, unless he doesn't want any of the jobs that are available, he is going to end up. I'm just trying to see real quick if I can find
Takayo
it now.
Takayo Siddle.
Okay,
That's what it was.
yeah,
Yeah, I said Psycho. It's Takayo.
yeah. Very nice way, Joe, to put it. I will still take College of Charleston to win this tournament for obvious reasons.
Well, obviously, Greg can't see my picks because he can't see our sheet, but I also went Charleston. Um, obviously, a team that has had some success in the past. Wilmington split the season series with Charleston this year. The guy to know for them is Jalen Counter, 15.9 points per game, 5.6 assists. He can really run the show, and that's something to note for this conference tournament.
How about the other guy to know for College of Charleston, Joe? We talked about him last offseason. Do you think we're going to be talking about him this offseason?
Are you saying Chris Mack's going to take another job?
Yes. I'm saying I'm asking if you think so. You know, people were flight tracking with him when the Xavier job opened up, and honestly, a lot of us Xavier alums, you know, myself included, thought, okay, all right, we re-signed Sean Miller, and we're just going to do the same thing with Chris Mack, whatever, and that's not what happened.
Yeah, I would say maybe he gets another job because the job market is so thin. Like for the bigger jobs, we're talking what with Jared Calhoun, we're talking Josh Schertz, and maybe after that, it's like you said, Kaio Siddle and Chris Mack are probably on the tier below, maybe two tiers below, but it's still good enough to maybe get another job. All right, so the next one up is the Horizon League. Greg, I went to a Horizon League game this weekend, NKU versus Wright State. Great game that finished very, very well. Wright State is the favorite. They won the regular season title, 15-5. Robert Morris also has some chops there, 13-7. And if you're feeling really frisky, Greg, you can take Doug Gottlieb's 12-8 Green Bay Phoenix.
How funny would that be? Oh man, I kind of for the headlines, I kind of want to see that happen. Now, again, if you're new to this sport and you've never watched college basketball before, and you're just entering and you're like, I'm going to give this college basketball thing a try. The Horizon League tournament almost always delivers. Doesn't matter who the teams are. It's teams shift in, shift out of this league. This tournament almost Joe, I have memories of us being in high school watching games from this exact tournament. The teams were a lot different, but always something memorable from this conference tournament. I'll take the favorites. I'll take Wright State to win. Although Joe, as he mentioned, watched them lose. Apparently I wasn't paying attention to the highlight you posted. I thought NKU hit the game winner or whatever.
No, NKU was up the whole game. They blew a lead really late.
Okay.
And there was a tip in by Wright State to win. No, here's what I would say. I hated the coaching by Wright State. And the rotations were off. It felt awful. But they have some really good players, and they're all young. They're probably going to get rated by the portal, no pun intended for the Raiders there. But they have one guy who's a senior who plays a lot of minutes, and they have a lot of other sophomores and freshmen. I really like their games. I think they're a team that should win this pretty. I wouldn't say easily, but I would say if they don't win it and Robert Morris doesn't win it, I'd be surprised about who does. All right, so next one up is the MAAC, as we like to call it, the MAAC, Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Greg, the team that is leading this year is St. Mary Mac. St. Peter's is below them, then Siena, and then there's Marist, Quinnipiac, and a lot of 500 or so teams in below.
This conference is rebranding too, but we don't. They announced that they're
Mhm.
rebranding, but we don't know what they're going to rebrand to. I guess they don't want to say the MAAC anymore, but whatever. Uh, I feel like Merrimack's kind of had a stronghold on this conference for a couple of years. Maybe I'm misremembering that. But I think Joe, they won the tournament the year they weren't eligible.
Yep.
Um, and Javon Bennett transferred from Merrimack. Jordan Durkak. So now I'm talking about Dayton players. So Jordan Durkak, he had a stop elsewhere, but he was also from Merrimack. Actually played with Javon Bennett. So for whatever reason, this program, since moving up, has produced players. I'll just take them to win this game or the tournament.
Uh,
More
we're,
than
we're
one game.
this is gonna be a crazy conference tournament schedule because I also took Merrimack, and yeah, we're staying with some of the favorites for the last couple. I'd say Charleston wasn't the favorite, but the last two have been the favorites. But we're all the times to take a shot and taking a non-favorite. We all pick the same one, but Merrimack is a good team. Kavere Kennedy has 18 points per game and 4.2 assists. And again, sometimes in March when things get tough and you're playing in these conference tournaments, you just need a guy to get you a bucket, and he can. The NEC is up next, Greg. This is a conference that usually gets like a 16 seed in the tournament, but still fun to watch nonetheless. It is Long Island University 15-3, Central Connecticut State Blue Devils 12-6, Lemoyne Dolphins 10-8, Mercyhurst Lakers 10-8 as well.
You know what, Joe? I think I can't wait till I find out that that you this is who you're picking too. If I'm remembering correctly, Central Connecticut State, yes, they beat Rutgers, and I thought they hung with someone else at some point in the non-conference. That's enough for me. I will take Central Connecticut State. Let me guess. Is that who you picked here too?
Yep, that's exactly who I picked.
this is I this is insane. Which ones did we pick different at this point?
We picked none. Is that right? Central Arkansas, UMBC, Montana State, High Point, Charleston, Wright State, Merrimack, and Central Connecticut State. I'm putting it on your side of the picks now, Greg.
I I don't even have access to I this is my it's my work phone. I'm just looking at standings. I'm not looking at the sheet. I have access to the sheet, but it's on my regular phone, which I'm
Yeah,
using to record tonight. This is
and
I mean, I guess you could say what are the odds? I mean, we're picking like, between the top 2 or 3 teams in the league. So
yeah,
like I mean, not that low, but still.
yeah, and I think we'll have some disagreements here later, maybe, but also in this conference, Greg, Lemoyne ineligible, Mercyhurst ineligible, New Haven, St. Francis not they're eliminated already. So it makes sense to pick the teams that have a chance to go to March. That's not how it always works, like we said with Merrimack, but they have more on the line. They're going to be more focused. I mean, everyone else wants to win, but that's how it goes. Ohio Valley Conference, Greg. This is the conference that has been tied at the top between Tennessee State and Morehead State. Southeast Missouri State is 14-6. UT Martin, I feel like they had some hype this offseason a little bit too, but they were 13-7. So a couple options there that you could choose between, Greg.
I'm just trying to think which one did you pick and not pick that one. Uh, hmm. Let's see. I'll take Tennessee State. I have no good reason other than they're on top of the standings.
All right, that is probably the smart pick. I'm taking Southeast Missouri State. Shout out to my buddy Ben. They're a team that played other teams pretty close early in the non-conference. They lost them at Missouri by 4. I think that carries some weight for these smaller conferences. They have 4 people scoring in double figures, and then their coach Brad Korn is, I think, a guy who may get another job soon because it is such a tough job.
Joe, I want to call a timeout here real quick before you move on, because I
Okay,
believe you're doing these. If my spidey senses are correct, you're doing these in alphabetical order, correct?
as far as I can, yes.
I thought the Missouri Valley Conference was also starting within the next week. I thought that might be wrong, but out of the sake of doing things in alphabetical order, I want to make sure we check that.
Okay. So that was not on our list to pick, but you're saying it does start.
I believe it starts this week. I could be wrong, but we skipped over it, and I swear when I was going through that both, and the only reason I'm remembering is I thought I had both the OVC and the MVC because in my mind I always mix up what teams are in which of those two conferences. It
No,
throws me through loops
it
sometimes.
yeah, it says it's March 5th through the 8th, so that would be this year. So let's do it. Let's get Missouri Valley up next. Greg, there is a
I don't make everything up that I say.
no, you're good. This is a conference, Greg, that does have a distinct favorite. They are a team that some people think has a chance to be an at-large if they don't win the tournament. But Belmont's the favorite here. You also have Bradley at 13-7. You have Illinois State at 12-8. Murray State at 12-8. Who has Mason Miller, who transferred in from Creighton and everything too. So there's some talent in this conference. This is another one where like this is a tournament worth watching for some solid teams, but also for some good basketball. They've had some really good finishes lately.
Yeah, Missouri Valley Conference often delivers. I mean, if we just think about teams that have been good in this league over the last couple of years, Drake, Indiana State provided some good quality tournament teams. Belmont has been, I don't know, for 20 years it feels like they've been a consistent team, maybe taking a backseat a year here or there to the Drakes and the Indiana States and whatnot. I think maybe there was a year where Illinois State was good, but for the most part, this has been a really consistent program. I mean, obviously, nice part of Tennessee where they are, so I'll take them to get the job done. And Joe, you said you heard some people. I feel like it would have to break a very specific way where there's no bid stealers, and
Mm-hmm. That's what I
I,
thought too.
I I'd love to see it personally. Even if it means they got to play in Dayton, but I just with the current climate of the sport, you know,
It,
it's
it would ha-
unfortunate, but I don't think it happens.
I don't think it does either. I would have to think it'd be like an Iona shock. I remember when Iona made it as an at-large and everyone was just absolutely shocked. It would be like that type of shock if they did. Um, Belmont's been the best team. I wanted to kind of maybe take a flyer on Murray State. I Mason Miller has not been very. He's been 5.9 points per game for them. He thought that maybe going down a level and playing for his uncle would maybe help. It did not. Um, but Belmont is a team that has four players who average double figures. Uh, Tyler Lundblade has been pretty good for them, 15.8 points. I'll take them. They're the sure thing. I wish I could believe in Murray State more, Greg. I really do wish I could believe in them more. All right, so next one up would be the Patriot League, Greg, and you're gonna have to talk me out of picking Navy here. I'm picking Navy 17-1 in conference. The next closest are Lehigh and Colgate at 11-7. I'm not picking against our troops. I don't know if you are either.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the conversation is here. What you want me to talk you out of? I'll take Navy.
All right.
Team goes 17-1 in conference and wins the conference by 6 games. Yeah, I'll take Navy.
They have a guy to know too. Austin Binyeni, 18.1 points per game. We're putting up numbers here. This isn't just Navy is a big part of our nation's defense, Greg, but they're on the offense when on the basketball court, doing a really good job there. Next one up, we have the SoCon, Greg. Let me type in your pick for Navy real quick before I forget here. SoCon is the conference that has, Furman in the past. UNC Greensboro has been good in the past. Sanford's been good. Wofford, East Tennessee State leads the conference at 13-5, and then everyone else is kind of like in the middle, 11-7, 10-8, 9-9. So this is a really wide open tournament, I think.
Yeah, let's see. So was how long ago was the Sanford team, Joe, that almost beat Kansas and probably should have, but there was a bad there was a breakaway and that wasn't within the last 2-3 years, was it? There was a
That
breakaway for Kansas,
was two
and
years. I think it was 2 years
they
ago.
they probably should have won that game, and an all ball was called a foul, and Kansas ends up winning the game. Let's just, for the heck of it, let's pick Stanford.
All right, there you go. Getting some justice for them later on. I'm going Mercer. They're number 2 in the conference. They have a guy Baraka Okoji, 19.5 points a game, 5.4 assist, 5.4 assists. Greg, I'm taking the star players over even some of the teams that might be a little bit better. Next one up, Greg, we have the Southland Conference. This is most notably from McNeese from last year, who had some good times. They also have Stephen F. Austin in here. Stephen F. Austin leads the conference in 19-2. McNeese is 18-3. And then there's a bunch of teams who are 5 and 6 games back from them that you could also pick between from Greg. But it seems like a two-team race if we're picking something that's not very chaotic.
Give me Thomas Walker.
All right. Greg has Stephen F. Austin. I am going with McNeese. They still, even without Will Wade, have done a pretty good job. Amir Khan's back, the Aura King. He's back. He came back from NC State. He got out of there, got out of Dodge at NC State real quick. But they've won, I think, about 8 or 9 straight games. I'll take McNeese. We'll go over to the SWAC conference, Greg. It is a conference that is led by Bethune-Cookman, 14-3. Texas Southern and Florida A&M are 10-7 each, and then just goes down from there.
Thought I was remembering that Dayton played Bethune. They did. And they played them tight, and they also played Auburn tight. How much does that mean? I don't know, but I'll pick Bethune-Cookman to win the SWAC.
Taking them too, and the same reasons. They played teams tight early in the season. That experience might help them out here. Summit League's up next, Greg. North Dakota State 14-2, St. Thomas 12-4, North Dakota Fighting Hawks 10-6, and then everyone else is 500 or below.
Is St. Thomas eligible?
Yes, they're eligible.
I'll take St. Thomas.
That figures. That's what I'm taking too. But that's how it goes. They North Dakota State's been solid in this conference, but St. Thomas has been really good as well. Nolan Minisele is 19.8 points per game. Again, I'm just taking the guys who score a lot of points. The Sun Belt is a super fun conference right now, Greg. They have Troy at 12-6. They have all these other teams are tied at 11-7. Texas State, Marshall, South Alabama, Arkansas State, Coastal Carolina, and Appalachian State. This is truly a conference tournament that is wide open. Who are you going with?
Troy took USC to triple overtime in November. I will take them to get this done, which reminds me, Joe, we did miss a mild note on a power conference team of which we could have brought up at some point. Don't know if they'll make the tournament or not, but USC without Chad Baker-Mazara, he's just off the team. Maybe got injured during the game and then went and sat in a different area. That USC might slip into the tournament. I would say they probably won't. Unfortunate year with injuries and whatever else has been going on for Eric Musselman, but just a weird headline to come from this weekend.
Yeah, I'm don't know how to say this, but I mean they're a dumpster fire right now with some of the injury. Rodney Rice, like maybe if he played, they'd be good, but Elijah Arenas is getting some run and he's doing okay at times, but really inefficiently. And now Shady Baker-Mazara is out, so yeah. So you have Troy that is currently the number 1 seed, but honestly, it is like not that far apart from the other teams. I'm going South Alabama. I'm going Chase Harris, 18.9 points per game, 4.7 assists on 55.1% field goal percentage. So also shooting the ball well. Again, sticking with that theme of the guys who can score the basketball.
Joe, I got to say, in all my years of watching college basketball, I'm not sure I've ever looked at another conference standings like this. 12-6, followed by 11-7, 11-7, 11-7, 11-7, 11-7, 11-7, 11-7, followed by 2 9-9s, 8-10, 7-11, 7-11, 7-11, and then ULM 117. I'm curious what the betting odds for this conference is. Like, that's wild. I don't know that I've ever looked at a conference standings and seen it. You're talking 4 games from literally second to last to first.
Yeah, I will say that UL Monroe is out. They're not going to win it all, but why couldn't Georgia State win 7-11 in conference? Why couldn't they? There's not that far removed from 12-6. Why couldn't they? All right, last one we got to go, Greg. West Coast Conference, the last one. This will be super impactful, maybe, but Gonzaga, St. Mary's at the top of the conference, 16-2. Santa Clara could make the tournament as an at-large. They're 15-3. That they're very much in play for an at-large bid, but might need to get some big wins. After that, everyone else is 500 or below.
Yeah, St. Mary's pops into the top 25 this week. Again, doesn't mean a ton, but gives them a little bit of recognition after they beat Gonzaga. That Santa Clara team, I feel like we've been hearing a lot about. I know I flip flopped it. I said, what did I say last week? I said they beat SLU, but it was the other way around. SLU beat
Mm-hmm.
them. I mean, it'd be cool to see a three bid WCC in the last year of it. I'll just take Gonzaga to go out and actually get the job done now.
I think so too. I think they just lost to St. Mary's. They're going to rebound from that and play better down the stretch. Again, I'm worried about them in terms of our national title contenders, but I'm not worried about them winning the WCC. I think they'll be able to win it pretty easily, even though they just lost to a team that's they're going to have to go through. So Gonzaga for me, Greg. That is the conference tournaments for the week. We will pick the rest of them next week. They all start next week. I'm sure more disagreements will be had on those when we have a couple more teams maybe we like or dislike in the top 3 or 4 of the conference. Before we head out, any final thoughts for the week?
It's March.
It is March. All right, my turn to remind everyone to like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcast. Also, like and subscribe to the TGH YouTube channel where this little video will be posted. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.